And President Cyril Ramaphosa has initiated consultations with the Judicial Service Commission and leaders of political parties represented in the National Assembly on the appointment of a new Deputy Chief Justice. You'll know that that position has been vacant since September last year, September the 1st to be specific, when the current Chief Justice, Mandisa Maya, took over as Chief Justice. The President has shortlisted 4 candidates for this esteemed role. Judge Dunstan Mlambo, Judge Mahube Molemela, Judge Cagney John Musi, and Judge Lazarus Pule Tlaletsi. Each of the candidates, we are told, brings a wealth of experience and expertise to the table. But what sets them apart and what qualities are essential for this critical position? I'm joined now by Zikhona Ndlebe, a senior legal researcher at Judges Matter. Zikhona, good afternoon. Thank you for your time this afternoon. The time that it has taken, I think I'd like us to start there. The time that it has taken for President Cyril Ramaphosa to come to this point of initiating this process of appointing a Deputy Chief Justice. What does that tell us? What does it say, given what we know about the importance of the role?
We've been concerned about the fact that we have not had a permanent Deputy Chief Justice since the 1st of September. And we put up a clock on our website as Judges Matter, and just to count the number of days that we have not had a permanent Deputy Chief Justice. However, we think that the President has made a good decision when it comes to nominating 4 candidates for the position of Deputy Chief Justice. We think that the position is very important, as is the position of Chief Justice was important in 2021 when the President decided to do away with the normal process of just appointing or recommending one person. He recommended 4 judges in 2021. So we're seeing a similar process taking place now. And we think that the President, he has made a good decision at the end of the day, although it has taken a while to get to that decision.
Yeah. Tell me about that shift from the President nominating just one name and allowing for that consultation with the JSC as well as leaders of political parties represented in Parliament. Why is it important that for the second time he seems to be taking a different track that says, I will not only present you with one name, but a selection of names? What does it afford the President when he does that?
So let's first look at Section 174, subsection 2 of the Constitution, because it states that the President is the head of the executive, national executive. After consulting the JSC and the leaders of political parties, he appoints the Chief Justice, Deputy Chief Justice, the President of the Supreme Court of Appeal, and the Deputy President of the STA. So that means that the President has has the discretion to who he can appoint as Chief Justice, a DCJ, a President of the STA, or a Deputy President of the STA. So at this point, the President has decided to exercise his discretion by selecting 4 people to be interviewed. So that means that the JSC will interview 4 candidates instead of one candidate, and it will make recommendations to the President as to the fitness of each of those candidates to hold the position of DCJ. And then the President has the final say as to who he will appoint as the Deputy Chief Justice. It's a similar process that we saw in 2021 when the Chief Justice was appointed, and in 2021, the former Chief Justice Zondo was appointed. So it's quite similar. We think that it's good that he's opened up the process because the position of DCJ is an important position. It provides support to the Chief Justice. And a DCJ has a very important role also to play in general, because if you look at the role of a Deputy Chief Justice, although it's not the same as that of a Chief Justice, it's quite similar. So if you look at Section 4, subsection 2 of the Superior Courts Act, it says that the DCJ must exercise the powers and perform the functions of the Chief Justice if there is an absence of vacancy in the CJ role, or if the CJ specifically assigns those powers and functions to the DCJ. And that basically means that if the Chief Justice is not there, then the Deputy Chief Justice needs to be the head of the judiciary or lead the judiciary. The DCJ also chairs the JCC, which is the Judicial Conduct Committee, which is responsible for disciplining judges. That's an important role that the DCJ plays as well. And the DCJ is also the chairperson of the Council of the South African Judicial Education Institute by delegation. So the DCJ has a very important role. Therefore, we need a DCJ who is able to perform these functions. So opening up the process means that we will be spoiled for choice. The president will be spoiled for choice.
So the president is spoiled for choice. Let's talk about the choices that he has whittled it down to. The 4 candidates that I mentioned in my introduction: Dunstan Mlambo, Judge President of Gauteng; Judge Mahube Molemela; Judge Cagney John Musi, as well as Judge Lazarus Pule Tlaletsi. Without asking you to make up the mind for the president and make a recommendation now, what do you think of the caliber as well as the strengths that they would bring to this particular process?
It's beautiful to see that the president has looked into this and he has decided to nominate people or judges who have leadership experience. And they've been in the judiciary for quite a long period of time. Madam Justice Molemela, she is now the president of the Supreme Court of Appeal, and she's taken over from now Chief Justice Maya. That role as the president of the SPA is very important because it is the court which is the second highest after the Constitutional Court. We've got Judge Musi. He is the judge president of the Free State High Court. He has worked his way from the ranks, from the magistracy to his current position. He has wealth of experience. His wealth of experience, including experience of the lower court. So that counts in his favor. And Judge President Tlaletsi, he is the Judge President of the Northern Cape. He's been a Judge President since 2017, but he's been the DCJ of that court from 2013. He also has wealth of knowledge. And one of the cases that he has penned down, Judge President Tlaletsi, which I think it requires, being a judge and being a Judge President requires a person who's innovative, with an open mind. And he's penned down a case in the Cape Country Estate versus Mahube, where an employee was dismissed for absconding work because she had gone to consult a traditional healer. And he said in his judgment that employees who should not be trivialized for beliefs which they may not subscribe to. So he's innovative. But if you look at Judge President Mlambo, he heads the busiest court, the Gauteng court. He's the Judge President of the Gauteng court. It's the busiest court, and he's sat on high-profile cases which are sometimes political, but that's the job of the Judge President. He has introduced case lines. Gauteng is the first division that has had case lines, and now there's a roll-out of case lines throughout the Superior Court. And Gauteng started that process. And it has been confirmed that that process works. And just a few weeks ago, the Judge President of the Gauteng High Court made it mandatory for there to be mediation in civil cases. Yeah. That's a direction. That's a way to the right direction. That's the kind of judges and DCJ that we need, innovative, who are able to find ways to make justice accessible, because people cannot wait until 2031 to have their cases heard. And Judge President Mlambo made sure that there are measures put in place to ensure that that doesn't happen. And the reality is that in many litigation cases, civil matters, people settle on the doorsteps of the court. Sure. And if you take that in mind, and mediation can actually resolve the backlog. So Judge President Mlambo, I would say, perhaps is the front runner for the DCJ position.
So for someone who's watching, an ordinary person watching our conversation this afternoon, Zikhona, why does this choice matter? In the context of, all I want as an ordinary South African is that if I have a dispute that can be resolved through the application of law, I should be able to approach a court and be able to be assisted and get justice where my rights are affected. How does the choice of a DCJ help further that objective?
All right. So let's first look at the position of a Chief Justice. The Chief Justice is the head of the entire judiciary, which includes lower courts, the magistrate courts, the small claims courts. And a DCJ provides support to the head of the judiciary. And there are various things that are delegated to the DCJ, as I've mentioned before. And if we've got a DCJ who has strengths that are needed to support the Chief Justice, who is innovative, a DCJ who is able to think outside the box and find ways to ensure that there is access to justice, then we can rest assured that the poorest of the poor who go to the magistrate court will also be thought about when decisions are being made in relation to the judiciary. So that is very important. That is why we need a Deputy Chief Justice who is going to basically be the perfect right-hand man or woman to the Chief Justice. And if we look at Judge President Mlambo and the division that he's the Judge President of, and the amount of work that he has done in that division, which is enormous, he perhaps is the suitable candidate for the position of DCJ.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time and your insights this afternoon. That is Zikhona Ndlebe, who is a senior legal researcher at Judges Matter.